Moving to the next item on the agenda item 5, written questions. We have none. Agenda item 6, the procedure that we'll use for consideration of tonight's planning applications. We'll start with the planning officer presenting the report. We'll then have members of the public who have registered with the governance section at least 24 hours in advance will be invited to speak. Maximum of 3 for and a maximum of 3 against, each limited to 3 minutes. Following that, we will then ask the agent or applicant if they wish to speak. Again, that person will have 3 minutes. At that point, we will ask for councillors' questions and clarification.
The main school block would be in the form of a roughly U-shaped 3-storey building, which is that there where my cursor is. A sports block and car park would be provided in front of the main building near to Tendring Road. The existing hockey pitch would be retained and refurbished to the north of the main building, which is that one there. A multi-use games area, which would be marked out as 3 netball and tennis courts, would be to the west of the hockey pitch. A running track and rugby pitch would be to the east, and a triple jump pit and long jump pit and 2 football pitches would be to the north, which are beyond the north of this slide. A condition is recommended which would secure arrangements for using the sports facilities for the community, and this is considered to be a benefit to the scheme. Due to the size of the buildings, I've used the 3D images here because they're slightly clearer than the plan. The buildings would be primarily timber clad, and the sports block is in the foreground here. There would be a one-way in and out system with the access shown on the left and the egress on the right. And there would also be a drop-off point consisting of 5 bays, which is outside the main entrance. And the main entrance is there. And this slide shows the existing and the proposed view from Tendring Road to the southwest of the site. The top photo shows the view from the footpath to the west of the site, over the playing fields in the foreground and the water gardens and this building in the distance. The bottom photo is from a similar position, but this time looking south towards the existing school buildings and the hockey pitch area. The fact that the site was formerly used as a school must be taken into consideration. Although there would be an increase in the amount of children attending the school by 800 students and 27 staff, our environmental health team have no objections in terms of noise. The in and out access would improve pick-up and drop-off, and the travel plan would encourage the use of sustainable transports rather than private car journeys. There would also be signal improvements to the junction at the Abercrombie Way and Tendring Road junction, which is to the west, and improvements to the pedestrian and cycle signage, which would be secured through a Section 106 agreement. The school proposes to limit the car parking to only staff and visitors, and the amount of parking would be in accordance with the parking standards. The Highway Authority has no objection to the application, and there is no evidence to the contrary to what's been agreed with the Highway Authority. In conclusion, there are clear benefits to providing a new school here, and it's considered that improvements to the access, parking and the highway improvements proposed for the wider area would help mitigate the impacts from the increase in the number of students and staff. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the applicant entering into a 106 agreement and the conditions informative set out at pages 21 to 27 of the agenda, and also with the additional conditions and the amended condition which was set out in supplementary agenda 1. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 speakers against this application, so could I call John Curry first, please?
can I first make a personal complaint? Sound system has gone, has it?
It's broken.
I can barely hear you.
Yeah, so
if I turn those up too loud.
Yeah, so we do apologise.
Yeah, so
unfortunately,
we do need.
It broke down.
And I will
today.
write.
It broke down today, so we do apologise.
Well,
we'll be working.
It's difficult.
For future meetings.
I'll do my best. I'm here on behalf of the Civic Society, and whilst we support the renewal of a new school on the site, we're here to express our disappointment, I think is the word I best use, at the quality of this application. Our disappointment is expressed in respect of two aspects of the project. On design, we acknowledge that the choice of the modular construction has many benefits: cost, speed of construction, quality of construction, etc. However, it seems that architectural appearance of the proposed building has been somewhat put to the back of the priority list in the quest for economy. This is a great shame. There is nothing like an exciting and interesting design to lift the spirits. Sir Frederick Gibbard knew this and went to considerable lengths to achieve it. We are therefore disappointed that the use of modular construction, which we support, has resulted in a building of bland appearance and not something that would lift the spirits of students arriving at college each day. Is it too late to redesign the facade of this building that bears the name of such an eminent architect? It doesn't seem to be too much to expect. We also know there is a complete absence in any of the documents of what we consider important environmental aspects of new developments. Where are the solar panels? Where's the green roof? Where's the wind generators? Where are the vehicle charging points? None of this seems to appear in any of the documents that I've read, which I found disappointing. With regard to the other element of our disappointment, it's infrastructure. Regard to providing an appropriate and adequate infrastructure that will permit access to and from the site, it would seem to us that the provision of a simple drive round, drop off and pick up as proposed does not go nearly far enough. Despite the statements to the contrary, it seems to us that congestion and atmospheric pollution are inevitable, not desirable in the circumstances. Surely it would be much better to remodel the approaches along Tendring Road such that a clear and coherent road, footway and cycleway could be constructed to the benefit of both the college, Harlow Fields Academy and to any other further developments of these sites. There is space if the needs of all users are taken into account and the existing highway modified appropriately. This could also provide for a better link to the existing cycle and footpath network to the east of the site where it bisects Tendring Road. Now is the time to do this, not later. If you know the link from the north-south cycleway to the east of the site has never really been finished. Tendring Road was closed something like 40 years ago, and they just built the cycle track across the existing road, and if you use it as a cyclist, you'll find that you have to crash up and down curbs, and it's totally inadequate, and this would be an opportunity to provide something that gives indication to those people who are going to be at the college that they're welcome to cycle to the college. They don't have to crash up and down curbs. It's a terrible mess down there. Furthermore, Tendring Road is used as a three-point turn in it, which they do all the time.
Thank you.
Have I finished yet?
You have.
Have I really? Oh, that's a shame, because there's more to come.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Job not done properly yet.
Could I call Mrs. Sutton, please? Again, Mrs. Sutton, you're about 3 minutes.
I speak as a governor of Harlow Fields.
Did you want to take a seat or?
Not particularly,
No? Okay.
Don't mind. I speak as a governor of Harlow Fields School and College, and note that nowhere in the Constitution document did I find reference to the road users who have to pass the Passmore site to gain access to our school. There is no mention of 151 children attending our school who have a wide range of disabilities, both mental and physical, as well as 100 members of staff employed to look after them. In society generally, provision is made for those who require assistance with mobility. I believe it is estimated that children with disabilities account for fewer than 10% of the child population. However, at Harlow Fields, all the children have a registered disability requiring assistance in one form or another, whether it's cumbersome mobility equipment or mental issues which preclude them from being able to perceive danger for themselves. We as a school have no objections to the reopening of the educational establishment and welcome the additional provision that the facilities will provide. But we do have grave concerns about the safety and welfare of our children and their parents and carers delivering and collecting children from Harlow Fields School. It is felt that insufficient recognition has been given to the needs of all our children. I note that the calculation of available parking only considered one side of the road, while in practice cars park on both sides. This in itself creates a barrier to the smooth flow of traffic, as each vehicle winds itself around the chicanes that result. Traffic and parking in Tendring Road already has its challenges. Cars parked on both sides of the road and those broaching the pavement too create hazards which most people would be able to deal with. However, a child with disabilities may not respond in the same way, and their own safety could be compromised. While the consultation document emphasises that many different means of access and the use of alternative transport for the new school, the same options are often not feasible for many of the pupils who have physical disabilities and or mental issues. The additional traffic using the new road will obviously create longer travel times for those currently using the road, an inconvenience which most people can accept, but some of our children can become agitated in such situations, making their own safety more unpredictable. If parents are unable to find parking spaces close to the school, they will be faced with longer and much more difficult walks to the school, increasing their safety hazards. Parking arrangements within the school would appear adequate. However, I have concerns that those car drivers who are not entitled to use those parking places will resort to parking on Tendring Road. Historically, this has caused a lot of inconvenience to our children, staff and visitors, and we are seeking to avoid the same situation reoccurring. There is a need to ensure the smooth flow of traffic both to and from both schools, especially at peak times, and there is a need for a larger proportion of designated parking for disabled use close to the Harlow Fields to ensure our children can get to the school safely and not become part of the additional 1,700 children and staff getting to and from the other school.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Will I call Mr. Cusson, please?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the planning application. Our clients are delighted to be bringing forward this proposal in association with the DFE and the Academy Trust. The new school will deliver a high-quality enhancement to the education offer in Harlow, including a new sixth form provision.
Pause you there. Can somebody go and whoever's in committee room one? Them. I just want to carry on.
Okay. In planning terms, we've worked closely with the officers and the statutory consultees, including undertaking pre-application discussions and during the consideration of the application. The application has been thoroughly assessed by the officers, and as outlined in the report, this accurately reflects that the main planning considerations have been assessed. We very much welcome the officers' support for the proposal. The building is proposed to be of modular construction, allowing the most efficient working methods and delivery of a highly sustainable and energy efficient building. The external design of the building incorporates natural materials, reflecting the proximity to the green wedge, and includes design details which are influenced by the architectural work of the school's namesake, Frederick Gibbard. This design has been evolved in discussions with officers and the design advisors at the County Council. A consultation event was held prior to submitting the application, and the proposal received broad support of the general public. A transport statement and travel plan have been submitted. The proposed parking provision has been confirmed as meeting the requirements for the development. The school's travel plan will encourage pupils to travel by sustainable modes, and the access arrangements will ensure that those arriving by car will be able to be dropped off within the site. The vehicles should not need to park or turn around on Tendring Road. The client's happy to enter into the agreements to provide for the suggested junction improvements, and the highways officers have confirmed that they're happy with the proposals to be approved. We've clearly noted the comments that have been made in respect of parking, but we feel this is taken on board in the proposal, and we have looked very carefully at the transportation implications of the development. The application meets all policy requirements, and there are no objections from the technical consultees. Overall, this will be a very beneficial development. It will provide a high quality, sustainable and accessible new school, reusing a former school site. I request that the committee note the officer's recommendation and agree to the granting of planning permission on completion of the legal agreements and subject to the suggested conditions. Very happy to take any questions. I'm accompanied by one of our clients who can also assist with any technical questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
Can I ask what consultation you did locally?
Yes, we held a consultation event at the Academy Trust is associated with another school here in Harlow, and we held an event at that school, and there was a leaflet drop within the local area of the school and local publicity in terms of the consultation event. So that was an afternoon drop-in. People were given the opportunity. There was also a website in relation to the proposals as well. So the opportunity for people to comment on that.
And how many residents came along?
I haven't got the actual numbers. It was a well-attended event. It was open for 3 hours and we were constantly busy throughout the event. I haven't got the detail of the actual numbers of people who attended.
That's helpful.
It's already been mentioned by John earlier, solar panels and succulent green roof. This is an ideal opportunity for students with environmental aspects in their lives when as they grow up, to put that immediately into the buildings, that sort of scenario, so they start off with an environmental friendly and self-producing situation.
Okay, yeah, there are, as I mentioned in my presentation, the building is modular construction, and so the actual thermal values within the building and the construction methods being used mean that the building itself is of low energy usage. There aren't actually any solar panels or sustainable energy production within the site, but the actual energy efficiency of the building is particularly high. I don't know if you will come in with the...
What I would say is, as you said, Nigel, is that the building is efficient. It doesn't require, we don't need solar panels.
And the succulents green roof type scenario?
Can I also chime in, sorry? We don't technically have a policy for instigating a certain level of renewables. That's all done through building regs generally now. Some of the things that John was talking about in terms of the electric charging points, again, although there's sort of the foundations of requiring those in the future through our emerging local plan, there's no guidance on actually how that should come forward at the moment. So in terms of complying with our policies, at least at officer level, we feel that it's done what it needs to do.
Still, it's good. It's a forward-thinking aspect when you're putting in a building that's the science. Yeah. But we put in the environmental thing because we need to do it later on. It's sustainable. Yeah.
In terms of the other thing, comment in terms of the drainage, the scheme is, there are sustainable drainage within it, so there's no additional runoff to the.
I just want a question about the population of the school. We're talking about 1,700 students, 108 teaching staff. Do we know how many ancillary staff there will be over and above that 108?
I think that the 108 is the overall staffing numbers of the school. I don't know how that breaks down amongst teaching and ancillary or support staff. But that's the overall staffing for the school.
That's right. So I'm just doing a little bit better because your figures don't add up to me. So 1,700 divided by 108. 16. Maybe, but I'd assume there'd be more staff than that on the site.
Can I just say, the business staff there, you've got the big environment school, but you've got teachers, you've got cleaners,
Yeah, can I just ask the public, clearly you've got your views, but councillors will ask questions, and then we are interrogating this, absolutely, but your figures don't stack up. There is no way a school of that size has 108 staff. If you include the cleaners and everybody else, you might have teaching staff of 108. You'll probably have 1.5 times that more, at least, I would have thought, with support staff and cleaners and all that kind of stuff. Any other questions, members?
As we seem to be opening up. My concern was the floodlights. I know previous applications I've been involved in is that floodlights can cause problems with local housing. Have you done an assessment? You submitted an assessment of proposals for the floodlighting of the hockey pitch, and it'd be used in the evenings.
Yeah, the environmental health officers considered that aspect of the proposal, and the way in which the floodlights work is that they are shrouded and are focused on the playing area, so there should be a minimum spillage.
But you haven't submitted a report with your application?
We've submitted all the information we've been asked to provide to the council.
There's details of the floodlighting in there, but I'm not sure if it goes into specifics of like luminance and spillage and things like that. But I think crucially, if you feel, particularly because of the level of use for the pitches, if you just want to put on a condition that suggests that those details are approved, just to make sure that you have everything that you feel is important. I would say, however, though, since they're refurbishing the stands, it will probably be more to do with the details at the top of the stand, if you like, rather than the stands themselves.
And just, I'd reiterate, we'd be happy to provide any additional information along those lines.
So if we put a condition in
absolutely.
for that, fine. We'll get that later. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Yes, Chair. Perhaps I should have asked this earlier on. The first question is could the school area be all fenced on? And if it is, there's a cycleway that goes across the green. Will that be fenced up as well?
So you're talking about that line that's sort of diagonal one. It's not an official right of way, I don't think, because in terms of a defined public right of way, you can't see it particularly clearly on the inset, but where the purple is there and around where the water is, those are the dotted defined public rights of way. Right. So it's more of I would call that a desire line. It is quite I don't know if there's a photo actually here. It's quite there you are. So that on the bottom photo, that there is the start of that desire line. You can see it here. So I wouldn't really call it I'll call it a shortcut more than a sort of a right that the public have.
But will it be fenced up?
It's going to be a self-contained site. So.
Councillor Clark.
Yes, the number of cycle parking spaces are below the minimum required by Essex County Council, aren't they? Now, bearing in mind the fact that young people are increasingly using their bikes, can this be justified?
Yeah, we've looked at that and discussed it with the highways officers. Whilst it's in terms of the standards, there is a considerable number of cycle parking spaces on there, and what it was agreed was within the travel plan that will be monitored going forward. There is capacity to provide additional spaces if required as the school develops, but at this stage, in agreement with the highways officers, it's considered that the number being proposed was acceptable and adequate.
More questions?
Final question, sorry. Will the pupils attending the school will they all be there on the first day, or is it gradually increasing?
No, it's a gradual increase. Over
classes.
Yes, that's right. There will be initial input, but as the school progresses, they'll be fed in through the bottom, really.
So that starts with 2-year groups, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
2 years.
Arthur?
Just a quick question. You're not going to be floodlighting the tennis courts, are you?
I don't think so. I think it's just
Just the existing one.
Yeah, but it would be covered by that condition anyway.
Right.
If you wanted to impose it.
Councillor Edwards.
Is there anybody here from the school who could tell me the numbers of ancillary staff and the total number of staffing that it is? I mean, I appreciate that you can't give me the figure, but I just wonder whether there's anybody here from the school who could give me the figure. From the new school?
I'm afraid not, no.
I have major concerns about the parking and the access to the ingress and the egress from the school.
I think it's a safe bet, Councillor Edwards, that it'll be at least 1.5 times the number of teaching staff as extra staff.
But what they can't define, what they haven't defined so far, is what the number of teaching staff.
I think we could assume that quite safely.
I would add that in terms of some of the ancillary staff, cleaning staff and other ancillary staff who aren't associated with the teaching services, then they will be accessing at different hours anyway.
Okay. Any more questions? Councillor?
If the school is going to start with phasing in, how long do you estimate that it's going to take before it's at full capacity? Because that will affect the parking, the staffing, the whole thing.
Well, it would be a gradual increase over the years of the school, so 5 years. 5 years or so, yeah.
Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Debate. Let's open up. Fighting for Richard. Go on then. Councillor Harlow first.
Well, a number of points to make. My daughter went to the previous parsonage, and I'm an ex-governor of the previous parsonage on that site. And the traffic then was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. You're now going to increase the number of pupils by nearly 100%, and I do not think you've made enough accommodation for that or given that enough thought. But that isn't a basis on which to turn this application down. I don't think you've done enough consultation. I don't think a 3-hour drop-in was adequate. I remember getting a leaflet announcing it. It was on, I think, a Monday afternoon, and a lot of people live out of town. They wouldn't have been able to come to that. Moving on to the design, the gentleman over there criticised the design. I would completely agree with him. I mean, Sir Freddie Gibbard had a vision for the town, and he made every effort to bring in good architecture. And as the school's going to be named after him, I would have thought you'd have taken the opportunity to make a statement, but you haven't. You produced a bland building. Modular construction is not an excuse. It doesn't stop architecture. If you look at the new Parsmore School, where the old one went to, they did get a beautifully designed building. They have made an effort. They also made an effort on sustainability, because it's important to teach the children the importance of sustainability. So unfortunately, those are not bases in which to turn this down. So I'm going to reluctantly have to support the application, but reluctantly. And I think you've missed an opportunity.
Councillor Garner.
I was just going to try and switch on the thing that's not there. I think Councillor Harper has covered probably most of what I was going to say. So perhaps a little bit disappointed it's not a cricket pitch. Cover all the other sports but cricket. So those that like cricket won't have it. Good thing having a sixth form in Harlow, outside of college. So I think that's brilliant. That'll take a few years to come on song. If we can put a condition on regard to the lightings, however you word that.
Proposing that?
I'm proposing that.
Something like to second it?
Councillor Finsettle.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. I think probably is all I need because Mike's covered everything except for old building. Have we got any pictures of the old building?
Because window, look, you can see it's
Still there.
Oh, right.
It's all boarded up.
It does look a
Been
lot
for a while.
different than this one. I know I'm not great modern architecture, but
it is good.
it looks reasonable. I'm not sure wood is always the best, but it ages better with wood, I think. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with design, unfortunately. You probably won't win a Harlow Design Award, which is a shame, but anyway, that's it, mate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Alfred.
I also agree that the design could have been improved when I look at the new Passmores, and it should have made more of a statement. Again, I'm concerned about parking when the school gets to full capacity, including the staffing, and the different events that are going to be going on there community-wise, because it's going to be a community building, and it's got to be fulfilling that role. And it's also got to consider Harlow Fields just up the road, and the situation there with traffic, etc., etc. But again, I can't turn it down under those aspects. But more could have been made of it, and I think it is quite disappointing. The children's education obviously is necessary and definitely needed sooner than later, because it has been standing empty for quite a long time, and we need to bring it back on track for education reasons. But it's not the best building that the students could have been living in a lot of their time in life. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Yes, I think there's a certain irony that we're considering this. It has to be mentioned, although it's got nothing to do with the planning. You close down one school, dislodge another, thoroughly upset the whole educational system of the town. And now here we are, it is an irony that we're considering replacing it with another school. Having said that, I know we can't do anything about that. I think the sports facilities are, on the whole, excellent. I know there's always going to be something that's missing, but to be fair, the sports facilities are excellent, and I'm pleased about the community use of those sports facilities in the evening, so that's good. But I agree with the comments that have been made. Parking is a major problem. I accept the concerns of children with disabilities in the vicinity. Something could be done about it, but I'm not quite sure what, and I don't see it as a reason for turning the application down. But that is a problem. The design, I agree completely with John. It's just plain. It is bland. There's no variety at all in it, and I would still urge them to somehow present a facade that, bearing in mind that it's twice the size of the original school, and it's just classroom after classroom after classroom. There's no opportunities taken to provide any interest or variety in the facade, and I would ask that some variety is still thought of it, but I don't see it as a reason for turning it down, and the school is needed, basically. So.
Anybody else? Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, a couple of points really. I am concerned that we don't know the total population, or we're not being given what the total population is of the school, or the access to using the school. I'm also very concerned that from a planning point of view, if not from the problem is in terms of the planning, what happens is that we will consider this building, we don't consider this building in relation to the impact on other, so the building is considered as a standalone rather than as part of the sort of total sort of ecosystem that's down there. And I believe that the planning officers, and by that in particular I'm thinking in terms of the county planning officers, should have looked much more critically at how the access and egress should have been provided for both Harlow Fields School and as well as for the new Frederick Gibbard School. So, because I predict that whilst on the one hand I don't think I've got grounds to turn this down, on the other hand I predict that if it goes through in its current form, that we're likely to have within the next few years that they will need to revisit the whole question of the access and egress into that area. And we should be doing it now while we're doing the building, rather than come back at a later stage and do it then. So, from my point of view, I think this is an opportunity lost. And if I had the powers, I'd be looking at this point to refer back and say, please come back with some other proposals that consider these reservations. But I don't think we can do that. So, whilst on the one hand I certainly welcome a new school, I certainly would, and I also welcome a school with sixth form provision. So I welcome the concept of a new school. I don't have any problems at all with that. I do, however, as I say, have some really quite major reservations about the impact that that's going to have in terms of the area, Willowfield and what have you areas.
Councillor Davis.
Yeah, there's already problems now with parking along that road, and I imagine it must cause problems with the school. I can see this as it's staying as it is. That's going to be dangerous, I think, because it's going to cause double parking. It's going to be people weaving in and out, as someone's already said. And I think they really need to look at the provision of parking, the entry and the exit, because I really think it's going to be a major problem in that area. I would like to turn it down, but as my colleague said, we haven't got the ability to do that. Otherwise, I would have turned it down.
Thank you. All right, before we move to the vote, I'm going to ask the applicants if they would be prepared to defer this and take members' comments on board, or whether you're requiring us to move to a determination tonight. Because I think clearly that there is opposition from members, but we're also mindful that the reasons for refusal that we would like to use would probably not be sufficient to determine it that way.
I think we know the concerns expressed by members of the building. There is a very tight programme for the delivery of the school in terms of hitting the construction timescales to allow the opening of the school within a targeted school term time phasing, and deferring even for the months to come back to the planning committee will give us significant problems in achieving that. I think we are required under the planning conditions to work with the officers in terms of travel plan and agreeing travel plan going forward. I think a lot of the points and concerns in respect to the travel and car parking and other issues could be considered and picked up through that travel plan process under the conditions. I think also we know what already said about the work with the higher officers to look at some of the signalisation and the signage to encourage the pupils to use the transport modes, and that's all part wrapped up with the travel plan.
It is, but it's not specific to the parking issues. So, could we condition the part of the travel plan review includes a specific review of the parking provision?
On Tangent Road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think the best thing to do is, as it is worded at the moment, it provides scope for, let me just find it. I think as it's worded, it's in the supplementary.
Supplementary.
It's quite broad in scope, so I think that if we are mindful of that, then that's something that we can particularly look at trying to address further. We can possibly tweak the wording. Right. So yeah, at the moment it's very broad and it's about updating as necessary throughout the life of the school. So I think that's the target. As it's phased, are things working, are things not working? I wouldn't necessarily put on something specifically to do with Tendring Road, but if you want to say a review that should focus on the parking and the pick-up and drop-off facilities that are within the site, which obviously is what the applicant has control over, they don't have control over what's outside the site, that would probably be the most sound way of approaching it. And we can address those through the discharge of conditions process.
And can I also ask that be included neighbouring site, the impact upon neighbouring sites, because it isn't just a question of the impact within this site, it's the impact of this site upon neighbouring sites. That's the immediately adjacent.
The emphasis needs to be on them meeting their own demand, but obviously we still have to have regard to the wider impacts. So to an extent we can, but what we couldn't do through the discharge of conditions process would be create more parking for the Harlow Field School, for example. That's beyond the scope of this, but we could try and tailor things in a way that's within the applicant's control, that addresses the concerns of councils as best as we can within the realms of the planning system.
So would members be content if I finalise the words with the planning team subsequent to this meeting on the basis of the discussion we just had?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
That condition? Yeah.
Yeah.
In that case, members, if we could move to the vote with that amendment around access to the building and compliance with potential issues which may arise. All of those in and the lighting condition. All those in favour of the recommendations 1 to 15, informatives 1 and 2, supplementary 16 to 19 as amended, and the amended version of 15, which appear on pages 21 to 27 and in your supplementary agendas. All those in favour? That is unanimously carried.